before I do some other things. I'm not going to be on here too long. But as the title says, I will be talking about my writing. What I've written, what I'm currently writing, projects that I plan on going back to eventually one day. So let's first discuss what I currently have out there. So currently I have 4 books, not very big. They're under 200 pages, all of them. A couple are like, or at least one is under 100 pages. So I have 2 short story books. The first one is called Another World Called Ours. And that one is more on the, I want to say, fantasy-ish side. Fantasy, comedy kind of thing. That one is considered YA. I technically consider, but, well, that one is definitely YA. The next one is, I don't want to say new adult because I know people don't really like that term. But, it's a little, I guess you would say maybe like the characters aren't as YA-esque as the first one. But anyways, Another World Called Ours, yeah, it deals a little bit more in like the fantasy aspects. Because I have stuff like leprechauns and magic llamas and wizards, which that's actually just one story right there. Hello everyone. There is one that I call Night of the Killer Cupcakes, which deals with technically witchcraft and cupcakes and stuff like that. There's one about a girl who technically, I guess would say, makes a wish, of course she does, to visit her sister who has, passed on. So that's some of the stories that are in that one. I think some of my favorites that I had written in Another World Called Ours is probably Two Wizards, a Magic Llama, or Two Wizards and Magic Llama, and Rain and Dandelions. Those are like my 2 favorites. I also really liked writing A Jar of Earth. Hello. So you can actually find A Jar of Earth in my, I believe, writing playlist. It's short, I think maybe only about 7 minutes. It's a very short story. More like on the short story, like flash fiction side. So that's a little bit about that one. My next one is called I Don't Know These Shadows. That one I just put out like a year ago. Like a little bit, maybe over a year now. But that one is more on the horror side. So we have stories about a internet stalker, 2 sisters who go to visit their parents and end up dealing with a type of creature. We have doppelgangers in there. Succubus type of characters. Yeah, all kinds of different things in there. There is sadness, darkness, creepiness, a little bit of humor. I have one that is about zombies and kind of like trying to survive after like a zombie virus, kind of like, moving on with life, trying to like get back to like a normal life kind of thing. Can I ask you something? That depends. What do you want to ask me? Or, I guess, yeah. But I guess my answer will depend on what you want to ask me. What is the purpose of life? I couldn't tell you. Dude, I couldn't tell you. But anyways, yeah. So, I think some of my favorites to write, and I Don't Know These Shadows, is probably It's Zombie Killing in Pizza Time, My Girlfriend Zinnia, and A Haunting Melody. I really enjoyed writing those. But please finish then. Okay. So yeah, those are a little bit about my 2 short story books that I have written. Eventually I plan on writing more short stories. I have a whole bunch of ideas and stuff. So then I have 2 poetry books. The first one is called Only Children Dream. That one is made up a lot of poetry that I wrote when I was younger, so a lot of it rhymes because a lot of it was stuff that I had written in school. Visa what? I don't know. So yeah, like I said, a lot of that rhymes because I was in school learning about poetry, thought things needed to rhyme. I mean, by the time I started like putting it together for a book, obviously I had learned more, and I had, heard spoken word poetry, different forms of like written poetry, but it was stuff that I could put into a book. So a lot of it's a lot of, I don't want to say childlike stuff, but there's like a lot of like limericks, just silly stuff. A lot of haiku. Stuff that was very deep and meaningful to me, but still very much on a rhyming scheme. So I think some of my favorites that I had written for that one would be like Water Dancers, Only Children Dream. There's quite a bit in there. Rubies from Ivory. My most recent poetry book, which came out before I Don't Know These Shadows. So, but they came out kind of close to each other. That one is called The Silly Things We Talked About. That one I had added some like pictures to. Some pictures and some like little doodles and stuff that I did. So you get a little bit of extra stuff with that one. That one again has some rhyming, but not as much as Only Children Dream. So The Silly Things We Talked About, a lot of it came from my recent experiences through like the previous years before I had written it and what was going on in the current year. So one of my favorite poems, and one of the first poems that I started thinking about for that book, was called Seasoned Friends. Will you be using AI? No, I will not. Never. So, anyways, Seasoned Friends, the title of the book comes from a line in that poem. And that was one of my favorites to write for that one. It actually started from an idea that I had, like, I think almost 2 years prior to writing that poem. And eventually it all came together. So I love, Seasoned Friends, Touch the Moon. That's another one of my favorites that I wrote. I wrote a lot of haiku in that one. Again, some limericks, some other things. Liquid Fire and The Archer are also ones that I really enjoyed writing. Actually, I think the oldest poem in that book is probably The Archer. That one I had written maybe 6-7 years ago, and I had never put it in anything. So yeah, that is a little bit about my, I'm gonna move you guys for just a second here. Books that are under my current name, which is S.E. Dickinson. Again, you can find this stuff on Amazon and Ko-fi. I think a couple of them might be on Lulu too. So I had self-published some books under the name Dea Dickinson, which I spelled D-E-A, and it's Dea, not Dia, but oh well. But anyway, I just ended up going with S.E. Dickinson for my writing now. Technically, my books under Dea Dickinson are still technically up, but I compiled most of that poetry into my other poetry books, so but I just never took them off there. I had Water Dancers and War Outside My Window. That's what I call those two, but basically it is the same thing that I just told you. Now for my current writing projects. So I am writing a horror novel series, like chapter book kind of things, like short novellas. And I am considering the name Shadow Creek for that. And the first book is going to revolve around jackalopes. So if you don't know what a jackalope is, it's considered a cryptid. And so it is a jackrabbit with antelope antlers. Now I have seen different variations of jackalopes, obviously made up ones, because, cryptids are things like, I think Bigfoot's considered a cryptid, the Loch Ness Monster, that kind of stuff, right? So, I have seen images, depictions, I guess you would say, of animals with, like, deer-like bodies and, like, rabbit faces, or just small rabbits with more like deer-like antlers, not like deer, not like an antelope. All different kinds. So I'm gonna put like different kinds in the book. But yeah, it is about a girl who, she breaks up with her girlfriend, and she's moved back home, this woman. And her mom is a writer. She writes a lot of, like, horror and kind of, like, she's really into mythology and stuff, and one of her favorite things is jackalopes. And then she starts to see jackalopes everywhere, and their family thinks that she's just working too much on this project, and they decide to go camping to kind of get away from their work and everything. And then things happen. So that will be the first story. I'm not sure what my second one is going to be, but currently I am working on my Jackalope story. To describe the length, I usually say kind of like Goosebumps. So something that's probably going to be no more than 200 pages, if that. Oh. My other story that I've written some because I was actually starting to write it for NaNoWriMo. But since it didn't work out, I'm doing a rewrite and adding more, but I kind of got the basic idea of what I want to do for that one. So that one is going to be my fantasy zodiac story. My main characters will be Gemini twins. I'm thinking of calling them Ayala and maybe Sky. I'm not sure yet. But this is going to involve like elemental powers and stuff like that, and a lot of different mythologies. So I'm doing a lot of research on that one. I don't know how long that one will be, but if I can do some pretty decent world building, then hopefully it'll definitely be over 200 pages. Like, I don't think a book necessarily has to be like 400 or 500 pages to tell a good story, right? Because while I love descriptive writing, you know, you don't have to go overboard. And I have not yet read certain things that are on my TBR, just because I know it's going to take a while to get through. So most of the fantasy that I've read pretty much so far has been middle grade and YA. And this book that I'm writing will be a YA. I think after I'm done with that and I explore more adult fantasy, maybe I'll start writing that. Who knows? Like, my short horror novel stuff is going to be adult-based. My fantasy story will be YA. And I also plan on writing some children's books in between. So I actually sent one out. And I'm trying to put one together. I had written one about a cat and the reason cats like boxes. I don't know what I'm doing with that one yet, but we'll see. I'm doing little side projects here and there, like when I'm kind of stuck on my main things that I'm writing. You know, I'll like work on ideas for like children's books, right? I'll jot some things down. Maybe like write a simple poem like a haiku or a limerick, or you know, just kind of like a fun idea to kind of get things going. I'm also trying to work on some zines. One is going to be like just poetry, mainly like nature-based poetry. This is the first time I'm doing a zine kind of thing. So I want to do something simple and see how that turns out before I go for a bigger project. So yeah, I have 4 books out. I am currently working on two like book books. One fantasy, one horror. I'm working on a zine that's pretty much like a poetry zine. I thought about adding something else, but I don't know. I think maybe I'll try that on the next one. I just want to make like a simple one first. We'll see how that one goes, and maybe I'll do like a taller one. but I just want to get through and complete the project first. There's also some unfinished things that I have going on. I'm a big coffee drinker. I love my coffee, and I had began a story that involved magic and coffee, and eventually I will get back to that one. That one was sort of a mix of contemporary and fantasy. So I don't know if it would be considered like low fantasy or urban fantasy, but you know, something along those lines. I also want to write stories that are based on the four elements. Like, I know I'm writing a lot about that in my fantasy story, but I thought it would be cool to have like little short stories. And I don't know if I want to do a zine kind of thing for that one, or just like really small books. I'm kind of thinking maybe just small books. But I don't know yet. But yeah, there's a bunch of ideas that I have, a bunch of writing projects. I'm trying to focus on just one though. That way I complete something. Right? So I'm hoping within the next few months that I will get this Jackalope story done, and I will be able to put it out there and you guys can read it. Let's see what time is it. Well, anyways, I think that's off right now. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.